Hello, and welcome back to the Marketing Schematic. I think we can all agree on the power that video marketing has. For anyone on the internet, which is pretty much all of us, it's hard to imagine going on any social media app and not seeing some form of video content. From influencer marketing to social media ads, video really dominates how brands are connecting with consumers. We say this all the time at Top Floor, but buyer preferences in the B2B space are changing and reflecting more of those B2C preferences. And video is just as powerful of a tool in the B2B space. So, in today's episode, we're going to explore how manufacturers specifically can harness the power of video. To talk all about video production for manufacturers, we are so excited to have Dylan Pieri, executive producer and co-founder of Digital Alliance Productions. Dylan's love for production started when he was 19 years old, working on indie films and television. That bug never quit and kicked off Dylan's passion for visual storytelling. With the help of two good friends and now business partners, Dylan's turned this passion into a lifelong career and launched his own company, Digital Alliance. Dylan and his co-founders serve the backbone of America, the industrial, construction, and manufacturing companies that make our lives easier, safer, and more prosperous. I was first introduced to Digital Alliance. I think it was actually maybe 2 years ago now. I had in my notes a year ago, but I think it's been longer.
Yeah, almost
Um,
2, I think.
yeah, it's been a bit. And you guys came to our manufacturing
Mhm.
roundtable, and I've just been truly delighted to know your team. And I'm so grateful that you said yes to being on the podcast. So, welcome to the show, Dylan. It's so great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks, Ann. It's, fun for me to be on the other side of the camera because when I do get
Yeah.
on site, it's interviewing folks. So, this is fun for me. I'm really excited for today. So,
Yeah, I know. It's funny. I mean, just before we started recording, you were saying like all my little list of things and heads up for you. You're like, "Yep, I know. This is exactly what I say to, who you're working with." So that's great. I was going to ask you too. So, is this your first time being on a podcast?
you know what? It actually is, believe it or not. So, we'll see what the future holds for others, but, yeah, I'm pleased to be on yours. It's my first one.
Oh,
So,
great. Yeah. It's very low pressure. I consider myself still to be an amateur podcaster, so the stakes are low.
well, yeah, you're a great host, and I enjoy the
Thanks.
content you guys put out. So happy to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. All right. Well, I don't want to waste any time. So let's start with just diving in about you, Dylan.
Okay.
Share a little bit about your background and specifically kind of how you got started in videography.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I came from a small farm town, northern Indiana, called Middlebury. Really famous for RV production. So, when I was growing up, interestingly enough, the recession in 2008 hit really hard, and I saw the people that were a little bit older than me, and then obviously all the adults at the time, having to look for work elsewhere, and it was really
Mhm.
sad at the time. And we left. I went off to college and everything, but I'm really glad that it's come back in full force, especially in that area of the country. But
Yeah.
when I was young, I was always fascinated by visual images. I always had our family camcorder at the time in my hands, filming stuff. I did photography and 4-H for 10
Mm.
years, which was a lot of fun, learning about composition and lighting and things like that. And I made a lot of really bad comedy films with my
You gotta
friends,
gotta start
middle
somewhere,
school and high
right?
school, as we all did. Again, that same camcorder got a lot of life out of it. But
Yeah.
I went to college at Ball State University. It's in Muncie, Indiana, the Harvard of the Midwest, as David Letterman likes to call it. The funny thing is, he was not a great student, and he has scholarships for the C student there who studies telecommunications. But that appealed to me. I wanted to do something with
Mhm.
communications. Wasn't
Mhm.
sure exactly what it would be, but I went there for that purpose. I started writing and acting in some student films just for fun, and that's where I happened to meet one of my now business partners, Andrew Bennett. And then through Andrew, we met our other business partner, Kenny Stevenson. He was working on a self-funded sci-fi dystopian independent feature film called
Wow.
Cherry Point at the time. And I had ended up studying PR, advertising,
Mhm.
and it seemed really, really cool to me. I jumped on the project as a publicist. I had no idea what I was doing right at the time, but
Yeah.
I was willing to jump in and figure it out. I ended up creating our film's website. It was, through Wix at the
Yep.
time, right? This is, 15 years ago almost now.
Mhm.
And even hosted a screening of the film once it was done at a local AMC theater, which was cool. And we
Wow.
sold the tickets for $5 a piece, and I hand delivered and collected cash on almost all of them. I mean, it was almost
That
300 seats that we sold for that. So
that's so
uh,
cool.
it was a really, really fun experience. So that really is when we talk about getting the bug to be around that type of content and production. I was like, wow, there's nothing like this. So I
Yeah.
wanted to continue that. And we made independent films and TV pilots for a few years. It's a lot of work, right? Mostly
Mhm.
self-funded, or if we knew anybody who wanted to contribute through a Kickstarter campaign, whatever that was at the
Sure.
time, we
Yep.
we did that for a while, and we got into some festivals. We met some industry folks who had interest in us, but the thing we always got, or the phrase we always got, was, "We like what you're doing. Can't wait to see what you do next."
Mm.
Over
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
over.
Yeah.
And
Is
we're family men. Eventually, we talked, and it's like we don't want to move to Los Angeles. That's really not of interest to us. We like our homes in the Midwest. And honestly, I think the instability of that type of work. I mean, there were literally times where we slept on the floor of a barn. I'm not even kidding, producing indie
wow.
films. Eventually, you got to like a pretty bad motel, right? But
Yeah. Step
I don't
up.
know. It just didn't seem like we wanted to stick with that for the long term. We had a love of
Right.
storytelling, a passion for it, and a lot of skill sets. We said, let's try to start a digital marketing agency. At the time, that's what
Mhm.
we were. And
Mhm.
that was May 2015. So when we started out, we actually offered services with video and photography, as well
Mhm.
as we did websites, we
Mhm.
did graphic design, and at the time, SEO was just blowing up. So we said,
Yeah.
we'll get into that too. We learned really, really quickly that just because you can do something doesn't mean you should, right?
Sure.
And,
Mhm.
and we quickly shed the SEO was probably the first to go, and then graphic design. I had a background in it, but it wasn't what I was best at. And then our other business partner Kenny is a web developer. We
Mhm.
built and maintain our own website, but offering that to clients just wasn't something we wanted to do. You
Right.
should talk to Top Floor instead,
Thank you.
right?
Little plug. Yeah.
Uh, you guys are better at it. You just are.
Yeah.
So once we shed those services, that's when our business really took off. But where we ended up in the manufacturing space was kind of interesting. It was a total accident.
Yeah.
We didn't mean to niche into manufacturing. We fell into it.
Mhm.
Andrew's family's business. It's called Siltech. They're a manufacturer of compressed gas cylinders. So that can be anything
Mhm.
from a medical oxygen tank you see at the hospital to oxygen, acetylene, high pressure steel cylinders needed for welding, a lot of different uses. Obviously, you see gas used in breweries. So those containers of gas vessels are what they manufactured. They happen to have a vacant tenant space and
Mhm.
said, "You guys want to move in?" And we said, "Yes," because we have nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
And we were actually on Industrial Drive. That was our first address, and still our legal business
Okay.
address is there. Although um, fairly recently, we've gotten rid of that office space because we mostly go on site for our customers. We really didn't
Sure.
need it, especially post COVID. But
Yeah.
that industrial park, that was our first clientele. I mean, it was
Oh,
literally knocking on doors saying, "Hey, we're
right.
here. What can we do for you?" So the challenge was, again, this is 2015. We needed to show this industry who's, let's just be honest, the marketing was way behind and sometimes still is.
Mhm.
Um, why should I invest in video photography, those services? Um, Explain to me how it works because I don't get it. Don't you
Mhm.
just send one guy with a camera and
Right.
everything's done in a day? Well, not exactly.
Mhm.
And why does it cost so darn much? Right? Those are kind of the three things we got. So
Yeah.
we were forced to develop a blueprint for creating, especially for video, successful video content. Just like any manufacturing process from start to finish, you have to have designs and you have to go through production until you have a finished product. That's the same way we like to run video. So
Mhm.
that's really where we learn to run our business with those types of clients, and how we learned to do it is because honestly we had to. So
Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh, so much of what you're saying is resonating with me even before when you were just talking about starting as a communications student. I was also a communications student and didn't really know what I wanted, but I was like something in media, something in PR, marketing.
Right.
So that resonates and I think like in your experience just trying new things and taking on maybe like unusual opportunities just to see what happens. That's kind of was my approach too. And like I sort of fell into the marketing side of things, digital marketing specifically. And then two, just the funny thing is our first office, top floor was also in an industrial park.
Wow.
And so that resonates too, where a lot of it was just proximity and that then became like kind of just the clientele that we were most comfortable with and most successful with and had, the most knowledge of. So, yeah, that totally makes sense and you're still kind of focusing on that niche today is the manufacturing industry.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
And, again, we won't say that we had our process right from the start and that we only worked with manufacturers ever, right? I mean, we ended up working with anybody who needed the services in the first few years, and we ended up
Of
working
course.
with, I think, 35 different industries over the course
Mhm.
of 10 years. But we can talk a little bit later about how we've found our way back to that and why it's really part of our identity now. But yeah, it just so happened to be that that was the case, and we love where we ended up. So
Yeah. Are you finding that there is still a level of resistance from the manufacturing industry? I mean, speaking from my own experience with marketing,
mhm.
I think I've seen things getting a little bit better and, there's actually dedicated marketing people at manufacturing companies who see the value in all this stuff. Is that conversation for you getting a little bit easier?
Absolutely. And a lot of it too comes with the new generations of leadership too,
For
because
sure.
when you get the folks that are in their 30s and 40s starting to get into prominent positions, it's kind of second nature that they need to
Yeah.
compete in different ways. And that's not, hey, we got our sell sheets anymore. I mean, yeah, you
Right.
need those, but
Right.
you need a lot of different types of ways of getting messaging out there and information about your company, products, and services. So to them, video is a no-brainer. It's just a
Right.
matter of also getting the funding for it with the budgets.
Right.
Always, obviously, still
The
sometimes an
buy-in.
issue,
Yeah.
but there's not as much of the why would we ever need that anymore. It's more of
Right.
okay, well, we've never spent on it before, and that's really the hurdle that we encounter often.
Sure.
Still is we haven't spent our budget on that quite yet. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good. It's getting better. I would agree. That's kind of the conversations that we're having. It's just getting over that first hurdle of this is kind of new, but we know we need to do it. So
right,
it's
right.
taking the leap. Yeah. So you had referenced a little bit just kind of the production process, and
Mhm.
it's not as simple as a guy showing up with a camera. And we say that all the time too with websites. It's not as simple as this is going to take a week. There's a lot of planning and thought that goes into that process. So I want to talk a little bit about that, starting with kind of if you're a manufacturer and you're considering going and doing some sort of video project, what would you say to that potential client about what they need to kind of consider before that like first discovery meeting with you?
Yeah, I think that the big thing is where is the content going to live?
Okay.
And primarily when we create video content, the area it almost always lives is the website.
Mhm.
So if you don't have a modern website that can support dynamic content, I mean, this is a second plug already. Look for you, Ann. I mean, definitely talk to the top floor folks because
Mhm.
if you have a really old, outdated website and we create a really high quality modern video for you and there's just no support in the infrastructure to play it on your website,
Sure.
yes, put it on YouTube, put it on your social media channels, but ultimately, the website, we want it to be a driver of business. And if it can't
Right.
support it, that's an issue, right?
Yep.
So I would always say you need to start with a modern dynamic website too. And also understanding that putting together a video project in terms of you, the client, is a lot like putting on an event. You got to get a lot of different people into your facility on a certain day. your production facility, while we don't want it to be sterile, we want it to look lived in and worked in. You should probably consider, hey, everybody has a new company branded work shirt during the time, and it's not just absolutely filthy everywhere, right? So
Yeah.
there's things to do. Get the mop buckets out of the way. I mean, little stuff like that. It is a lot of planning and logistics to put something together like this to present your company the best way possible. So again, if you, the marketing manager, have plenty of time to do this, but no one else is in on it, it is going to be a little bit of a struggle to get that
Right.
organized. So do you have a place to put the website, and then do you have the power to sway all these people to get ready for this
Right.
production? That is super important too. And then
Yeah.
certainly understanding your goals will help us understand what types of video you need, because a lot of organizations will start with, well, we know we need to do video. We certainly have recommendations on where to start, but if you have particular goals that we're not aware of, like we're only interested in recruitment because we just can't hire enough people, we don't need to
Mhm.
spend time promoting the services maybe.
Sure.
So those are probably the three big things from the
Yeah.
start.
Yeah, and I think, and we will get to this in a little bit here too, that ties in with some of the types of video, I don't know what you'd call it, like, I don't think formats is the right word, but just kind of, you have your product and services types of videos, your about us, which might work best for like a recruitment type of thing.
Right.
So
Mhm.
yeah, understanding those goals will lead to like what is the best type of video content to produce. So yeah, that makes sense. And that's such an interesting point of it's like putting on an event and just making
Mhm.
sure that everybody is on board. I think that's got to be a huge part of it, is if you walk
Yeah.
in there and you've only been talking to one person and everybody else there who's a part of this video is like, what's going on? What are we doing?
Yeah,
You're going to be great.
it is exactly like putting on an event, and we create production schedules, which in the event world you could call it a run of show,
Yep.
whatever. What time are people showing up? What needs to be done by who, where, when? All of that
Mhm.
is super important when we come on site for production, especially. So
Yeah. Very good. So if you're a marketing manager at a manufacturing company listening, make sure your communication is on point and you're letting all these people know you're going to be needed. They're kind of that liaison to for your team. Um, so I want to go through some of the core stages of a production
mhm.
process, and you've shared a pretty good kind of infographic of what those stages look like. So I actually forgot to mention this at the top of this interview, but because we're talking about video, there's going to be a few visual references. So we do record this podcast, both audio and video. So you might find it helpful to actually watch the video version of this episode because we'll be showing these examples. We will be talking through it. So you should get the gist of it if you're just listening, but just did want to share that. We'll post links in the show notes as well. But anyway, that disclaimer out of the way. I think I'll go ahead and pull that infographic up if you're cool
Yeah,
with
that'd be
that,
great.
Dylan.
Mhm.
It's a really great reference. We're actually working on creating something very similar to this. Side note for Top Floor, of just kind of showing like what, a year at Top Floor looks like. What is your, month by month. So
Oh, great. Yeah.
yeah, so this is like, I get it. Yeah, this is super helpful. All right, so let's just start with I mean, you kind of talked a little bit about that discovery meeting, but do we want to go with kind of like briefing and budgeting and just kind of what you discussed there, what that looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, when I talk to clients or prospective clients about the process, the education part of how this works is really important. And again, for
Mhm.
those companies who have never done this before, this is not an overnight thing. There are a lot of steps that go into this type of project, and we have some examples. I think Andy will pull up of what the creative documents look like, and finished
Mhm.
product and all that. But
Mhm.
it does take a lot of time, and there are a lot of hands that touch these videos, literally or figuratively along the way. So of course, briefing and budgeting is all about figuring out what type of project we need, what are the goals for it, what are the video deliverables you'll end up with, how are they going to be used, all those types of things before we get to a kickoff meeting to actually do the project, right? So that's where
Mhm.
I come in most of the time, is to be the architect of what will that project look like from beginning to end. As a producer, I'm thinking of everything that can and will go wrong
Yeah.
along the way. And honestly, the time frame here is really important to keep in mind too, because if both organizations aren't aligned on it, it's going to be a little bit of a mess sometimes. Now,
Mhm.
again, we didn't necessarily have a 3 to 4 month timeline at the beginning of our business, but over time, over about 10 years, we figured out this is pretty good
The
sweet
sweet spot.
spot for
Yeah.
a couple videos created from a shoot or two for a client. So going through it a little more in detail here, the first phase here after this kickoff meeting is the creative development. So
Mhm.
the approach for the project is really important. How are we going to approach it? Uh, Filling out a full questionnaire, which I'm able to do some in a discovery meeting, but if we're talking about a history video, we need a lot more information than I'm going to gather from a few calls, right? So
Right.
the questionnaire is going to outline every single thing that we're going to cover in the creative before we actually start on the actual documents. When you think of creative documents for video, you might think of scripts or storyboards, things you'll see below. Well, we need a full questionnaire filled out before we can really hit all those types of things. So
Mhm.
starts an outline, then gets to a script, and then case by case, it'll be a storyboard. We'll have an example of
Sure.
a
Yeah,
documentary style outline later. Mhm.
do you want me to show that now? Would that be a good spot, or you
Yeah,
want
I think so. If we're going to show the creative and then show that final video as an
Yep,
example, I think that'll be a great way for everyone to see where
the
it
next
starts and then where it ends.
Yep.
So,
So like Dylan was saying, we've got a really great example of some work that they've done for a specific client. So for this creative development piece specifically, we have kind of the document of what basically the creative document that outlines logistics and kind of storyboard, things like that. Um, so we can just kind of talk through this.
yeah, I'll narrate this one as well. So,
Yeah.
um, so this is what we call an organization profile about us type video. And actually, Ann, if you could go back to the front page, I wanted to point out that. So this is for a company called JB Industries, manufacturer of HVACR parts. They're actually out of Aurora as well. We met them years ago. And we have a working title, right, for this piece called It Takes American Guts. They wanted to talk all about made in USA and how they, really quality control all their manufacturing process from start to finish, the relationships they have, et cetera. So when we talked about the scope of this video, myself and the marketing manager, we knew we wanted it to be an about us video. But It Takes
Mhm.
American Guts and everything you're going to see forthcoming was all developed during this creative process. So the deliverables we ended up with giving them were a 3 to 4 minute about us video. 16 by 9 just means the aspect ratio, widescreen, 9 by 16 is vertical, like on your phone. So we did come out with two deliverables from this video. And to be honest, most of our video packages these days are much more. Now, not included on this page too, is we always do offer the ability for a company to purchase all of the raw footage as well. So if you have even some basic editing skills, which most people are marketing folks are getting used to these days, you could edit more videos from it. It's not limited to that. So anyways, that's a little bit of a
Sure.
preamble there, but let's get into the next pages if you would.
Yeah.
And so again, the working title here, the synopsis, just like a film or a TV show, what is this video supposed to be about? We want to agree on
Mhm.
that. We want to agree on the tone and mood, the pacing of it. And then every good story has a beginning, a middle, and an end, or a 3 act structure, sometimes the term you hear. So within this, we want to figure out what topics do we want to hit on. So they wanted to hit on the foundation of the company, the ethos of the company, the culture, the craftsmanship of their product, the impact it has, and then their vision and what's in the future. So without actually force feeding lines to these folks, we want to hit
Mhm.
on those topics
Mhm.
and we want to interview these subjects below. So you can see it's a pretty big mix here. We often recommend 4 to 6 interviews. They had a little bit more. They had 7, but you can certainly get away with less. You could do 2 or 3 and still tell a really good story. But they had the president, co-owner. They had a CFO. They had a director of manufacturing, a VP of sales, and they even had a customer in there, which we'll get to that.
Yeah,
Customer testimonials are so big, but
that's big.
those are
Yeah.
the people we interviewed for this project. So if you wouldn't mind going into the
Yeah.
next page, we actually put together
Oops,
a
sorry.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Yep.
An opening montage of some cool shots, opening the factory, things like that. So it's not an exact shot list with framing and things like that, but generally these are the types of sequences we could put in the video, and you'll see some of that later. But if you continue on to the next page there, again, we are breaking it down by act. So we're trying to do the foundation and ethos. What interview questions are going to get us answers that lead to covering that topic, essentially?
Mm-hmm.
And then below, you'll see the shot list. Again, it's pretty general. It's more shot ideas, but what types of visuals will actually accompany those types of things? So again, this is the
Mm-hmm.
blueprint for what we're about to produce. So if you can keep going, you can skip through just the next two
Yeah,
pages. Same
kind of
kind
the
of
same
thing.
stuff.
Yeah, same
I have
thing.
a real quick question. So
Absolutely.
um do you come up with these, I guess it's in your brief. So you come up with the questions for these interviews. Does the marketing person ever like influence these questions or help kind of support, or is it more like you guys kind of take this over?
Yeah, we love to collaborate on this because
Okay.
we're experts in video, but not your company yet. and
Right.
and to be honest, we'll never be as knowledgeable. We hope to be close to,
Of
but
course.
oftentimes we'll ask for bullet points from an
Yeah.
organization. What do you want to hit on? And this is again the end result, right, of all this collaboration. But we like to have you all take a stab at for sure some of the interview questions because there are some things that just aren't generic enough to apply to every organization,
Sure.
right? But ultimately we will come back with some suggestions as well and end up with a document like this. So
Yeah, that makes sense. I imagine that that questionnaire that you start with is really helpful too in
yes,
gathering that. Yep. That makes sense.
absolutely. And then this is maybe the last thing to hit on with this document is we do
Mhm.
outline for our camera team how we'd like the interview shot. It's typically two different camera angles. Where is it going to be shot? We love locations with a lot of texture, a lot of depth. Think of
Mhm.
the worst place you could interview is up against the wall of a conference room. And I know
Yeah.
I'm kind of against the wall in my home today, but it's
Yeah.
Friday. But
It's low
the
budget.
cool, yeah, the cool thing about this video you're about to see is the interviews were shot in their manufacturing facility. Now we had to
Yeah.
schedule that. This goes back to the scheduling to
Mhm.
do a time when the production plant was down, right? So we didn't
Mhm.
interfere with anything, but actually having interviews taking place in the location where the work is done for your company is a big plus for sure. And then
Definitely.
we always like to give our camera team, our cinematographers, visual inspiration for B-roll footage. We like to get it is a lot of slow motion
Sure.
cinematic things when you think of manufacturing. It's a lot of sparks from grinding or
Mhm.
welding flares, things like that. So it's a big mix, but it depends on your organization. And if the work you do is different, it's plastics, whatever it is, we'll have different visuals to represent that. But yeah, that's really again the blueprint for what we put together. And the last page I think on this document is we do curate music options. We do titles for lower thirds. How are people's names going to look on screen? And again, with the music, what we're recommending for the music so that, again, everything's on paper before we do any production. And that's the
Yeah.
goal. It is the opposite of show up, film it, and hope we get what we need because our
Yeah.
experience shows it just doesn't work. It doesn't
No.
work well. So this is the amount of time we put into this blueprint, this process on the
Yeah.
front. So
Do you guys use like and I know from experience not every manufacturing company has this, but is there do you reference any like brand guidelines from the company that you're working with if that's available, because sometimes things like logos or fonts or whatever can be relevant.
yes, absolutely. And that's one of the first things actually we'll ask for in the questionnaire is upload all of those so that we can
Right.
understand a little bit more about it. And then especially for things like graphics, we're going to use your fonts, your colors, everything like that as well.
Yeah,
So
makes sense. That is a great document. Super helpful. I could see that being really helpful from the client end. So then that moves into the pre-production.
yeah, pre-production here, pre-pro, you might hear it called sometimes, is a lot of the logistical stuff, schedules, again, the production logistics, what's going to happen when, finishing up any shot lists that are needed, and then, you know, There are times, especially where we'll travel. Now, again,
Yeah.
I think I mentioned in the beginning, we're based out of Aurora, Illinois. However,
Mhm.
we do have Indianapolis and Louisville locations. Really, the three of us business partners operate in different markets just so we could
Yeah.
serve more.
Right.
But we certainly post COVID, especially once we moved out of that office space and spread out. We've been moving up into Wisconsin, for instance,
Mhm.
into Ohio. So the Midwest really is our stomping grounds. We go where the work is. We go where the manufacturers are.
Right.
But there are times where if you're, let's say, manufacturing very specific custom machines in your shop, and there's just really no use, practical use to have that machine there. It's going to be shipped elsewhere. We do go offsite and travel. We've been to about half the states in the US to film. A
Yeah.
lot of the time it's case studies, testimonial videos. So that's where maybe the travel logistics would come in. But getting the crew ready, getting the schedule ready, that's all the pre-production for the most part. So
Yeah. Makes sense. And then production.
production. So this is the fun stuff. This is on-site
Yeah.
interviews,
This is the big
B-roll.
day.
It is the big day. This is the event. This is the
Yeah.
event day.
Yeah.
You've probably heard the term B-roll before. For anyone who doesn't know, A-roll is interviews. You see that on the news, and then they cut to B-roll, which is usually just a slow panning shot of a
Yeah.
school or whatever they're covering. Right? A-roll versus B-roll. That's all we're talking about is visuals that aren't interviews. And it doesn't always have to be interview based for a video. It could be a scripted voiceover. I want to point that out, that you don't have to interview folks. A lot of organizations choose to do it because it is really authentic. A lot of the times you get to hear from a variety of voices, but some organizations like to control the messaging really tightly. And there always is the risk, obviously, that someone on camera leaves your company. And then it's
Mhm.
like, okay, we got to re edit the video. So there are times, certainly, to do a scripted voiceover, but I just want to point out that you don't have to do interviews to do a production, is all. But
Sure.
yeah, interviews, just B-roll footage of the facility, people in action, workers, or specific product shots. A lot of the times we'll get those too. Um, Voiceover recording with a voiceover artist is technically a production task, right? We need to organize this and have them produce something. Any other asset creation like graphics happens during this time, and if there happens to be maybe you have a certain software on, I don't know, it could be a laser cutter you've developed. I'm just making this up. Maybe we want to show that software and we want to actually record a screen of it instead of just trying to film a screen. So all those types of things are production. Predominantly, though, it is filming on site with the customer. Of
Yeah.
course, if you have product videos for Amazon, we could film them in a studio, those types of things. But that is the big day production. Now, typically,
Mhm.
we'll film for at least one day. There are times
Okay.
where it may take 2 days. The video you'll see in a little bit. We did shoot for
Right.
2 days. It's very very rare that we shoot an entire week. The only exception would be if you have an entire product line. Let's say you're going on e-commerce and you have 20 or 30 different products. It may take us all week to film those.
Right.
But most organizations, a day, day and a half usually gets it done. So.
Okay. Got it. Yeah, that was gonna be my follow-up question is how long that typically takes. Okay. Okay, cool. And then you get into the post-production, which I feel like that is kind of like the some of the meat, like, it takes a good amount of time here.
Yeah, it does.
Rightfully
And
so. Yeah.
I should probably, I mentioned I should back up a little bit because I mentioned the number of hands
Okay.
that touch this. Let's go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
So you've talked to
Sure.
me already to scope out the project and figure
Mhm.
out what it's going to be. In the creative development phase, usually work with our creative director, and we have a project manager as well, single point of contact that's coordinating all these things. So you've already talked to three people. In the
Mhm.
pre-production, you're going to actually meet, the field producer who's on site, which sometimes it's one of us who run the business. Oftentimes, it's one of our trusted folks who's an
Mhm.
expert in interviewing these folks who really aren't used to being on camera. Almost a
Mhm.
journalist, if you want to think of it that way. So there's
Sure.
a field
Yeah.
producer really on site that you're meeting. So now you've met four people. Now the production day, you're going to have the field producer, usually a cinematographer, operating camera, setting up lights, and then also usually an audio engineer, someone to record the audio. So
Mhm.
I think I've lost count already, but that's six, maybe
Yeah.
six people that have touched the project, right?
Right.
We do offer other individuals sometimes are needed. If it's a really complex shoot, maybe you need a drone operator to get
Oh, yeah.
visuals, aerial visuals. Maybe you need a hair and makeup artist because all these people need some work. I don't know, right?
Sure.
So potentially you're up to 8 already. And then when you
Yeah.
get to post production editing, there's always a supervisor overseeing a handful of editors. So there probably at a minimum are 7 people, 7 hands touching this, and max maybe 12 for these types of corporate,
Right.
manufacturing video projects. That's a lot of hands to touch it. It's a lot of people. So it's really important that every single person who's going to be a part of this project is operating off of the same document, same blueprint, so everyone knows what's
Right.
going on. And
That's
and
such
from the people who
yeah.
go on site, from the people who pick up the footage to edit it, everyone's on the same page, and that's super important
Yeah.
as we go along. So
I'm glad you brought backed up to bring that up because I think, well, for one, shows how important that creative document is because that's kind of like your like North Star in a way
yes,
because you have all these people that you're bringing in, people from the client's team that are going to be a part of it. Like this is the guide, that everyone can understand the goals, the purpose. But I think also just going back to your point at the very beginning of this is not just one person showing up one day with a
no,
camera. You know, there's a lot that if you want to do this right, there's a lot that needs to go into it and a lot of hands at play. So that's a really good point.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And again, some companies may have an internal video person who is, in a sense, filling all these roles. But when you get to a certain point, the project becomes too large for that
Yep.
person. So we do work with some firms who have an internal video person, and they are a great reference, honestly, for us as we build out these documents because they can point out things from a technical perspective that a
Sure.
marketing manager without the experience maybe can't. So we see it as an asset if honestly if a company has an internal video person to these larger projects. But at the same
Yeah.
time, if it's hey, our CEO would like a quick direct address video in his office, that's probably not the project for us. Right.
Right.
And that is a great project for an internal video person. Just capture that and post it and it's done. So, anyways, I think we were at the post production phase.
Yeah.
So, first things first is the footage has to be backed up and secured. So we'll put it on our server. It's backed up to a redundant server, and at the end of the project, we actually archive it to tape and we keep it forever. When you
Mhm.
think about hard drives piling up in a desk, those will eventually go bad. Our LTO system and tapes have a 70-year shelf life, so we will keep that footage for a long time. I hope I'm not still doing this in 70 years. We'll see, but it'll be available, right? So
Yeah.
um, the post production process, we are going to go into editorial. We call it the edit, using either Adobe Premiere, DaVinci Resolve. There's a lot of good editing programs out there nowadays, but we cut the first edit to that creative that we've already talked about. And we hope to get a really good first draft because we've all agreed on the story flow and structure. However, we do offer typically 2 to 3 revisions for clients. Once they get to that point, everything's done digitally. You can just timestamp it, click on basically the image, and type your comment about what you like, don't like. It's very intuitive, very easy process. But once the edit is locked, we call it picture lock, where no more clips are moving around. We have the order as if we want it. Then we'll do final touches to make the color pop in color correction and just tweak the sound, master it so it sounds really good across the board. There's no
Mhm.
issues, with the audio along the way. Any other motion graphics, text callouts on screen are typically finalized before then. A lot of the times, and it's just like a lower third, which just means a title. Hey, this is John
Sure.
Smith, the director of manufacturing, whatever it is. But sometimes we can put text callouts on screen to call out certain points of a plan. It would just depend on the type of video. And then final delivery is pretty easy from us these days. You can just download the final file. Usually have a web ready. You can go on the website immediately and go on YouTube immediately. And then if you choose to get some of the files, footage, we can ship it on a drive. That the files are just so large that we just can't really send them over the web very often. But
Yeah.
that is it, start to finish. And again, 3 to 4 months. I would say
Right.
4 months for a new client we've never worked with because it takes a little bit to get the rhythm and the flow and how we work together.
Uh-huh.
If you're coming back, repeat, and especially if we're not terribly busy, 3 months is possible. But again, it is a lengthy process, and this is why there's all these steps,
Right.
all these
I mean, it
people.
makes perfect sense. And um just to kind of for those just listening to give you just like big perspective. Obviously, the quote unquote shortest piece of this is production day. That's where,
Mhm.
one day to at most a week. But just to give you kind of the visual reference, all the prep work, like the creative development, the getting all the right team members involved and getting their input, the scheduling, the logistics, booking, travel, all that kind of stuff, that is looks like a 2-month process right there.
Mhm.
And then of course the post production, the editing, that's another big chunk of this, and that's 4 to 8 weeks. So that those are like kind of the meat of the project, it seems, on kind of bookending the uh, actual production. You think of it as just one day, one event, but there's a lot pre and post that goes into this.
Yes, absolutely. There is a lot, and that's what we want everyone to understand too. Is this is a it's going to be great product for you all. It's going to be a large commitment though from everyone
Mhm.
to get this across the finish line. So as
Mhm.
much as we can up front, here's what we're getting into,
Yeah,
right? So
and I think once we get into the example of this particular manufacturing client, that it will make sense too, like that this can't be done in a day.
yes, yes.
um, so yeah, very cool. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen just for a minute while I pull up my personal notes. Yeah, I think we've kind of covered a lot of the process. Anything that we're missing here? I think that was a
No, I
pretty
don't think so. I think, whether we jump right into the types of videos and then show that, or if you'd like to show the example that we just saw from
yeah.
the creative, up to
Let's
you. So,
let's start with let's show the example of this particular case. Is it JB Industries, right?
correct. Yep.
Um, because we're talking about it, and then you can kind of, for viewers, understand, connect the dots, and then we can talk a little bit more about other types of video projects too that you guys do. So I'm gonna pull that up. This is just such a cool video. You guys did such a good job.
Hmm.
All
Thank you.
right. Whoopsies. Okay, let me pull this up. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and play this for about 45 seconds. Again, would recommend there'll be a link to the full YouTube video. It's a 5-minute video. Would highly recommend you go watch the full thing.
The legacy of JB has always been built on people. The backbone of any manufacturing company is the people that come in and do the work in the morning. So if there's one thing that we can do that differentiates ourselves is we take care of our people. When JB was founded, everything was focused on quality of product. In 2005, when my partner and I took over, we realized one of the things we had to do is also look externally. We worry about our wholesale channel every day. That's where our relationships are. That's what we try and focus on more than anything. The person that's selling our product to a contractor, he needs to know that we've got his back.
Made USA is more than a tagline. From an engineering operations perspective, Made USA means that we control every aspect of our manufacturing process. For instance, this vacuum pump cartridge, every component is machined here at JB. If we had someone else manufacture it for us or perhaps bought it overseas, we would lose that quality control. We manufacture most of our products from raw material. We know.
Oh, okay. I was trying to cut it off a little bit later than that, but I think that gives you the gist of it. Yeah, so I guess what would you call this type of video? Like, is this an about us, or how would you
Yeah,
describe?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is our quintessential, organization profile about us
Mhm,
video.
mhm,
And we can talk soon about, how we recommend for cost effectiveness to package this together with other types of videos. But
mhm,
this is interview based, documentary style about the company, a little bit of history, what you do, where you going in the future. And it's a great way for organizations to introduce themselves, and again, it doesn't have to be just, it lives on the website. You can use it as a sales tool. You can do a lot of different
yeah,
things with it. But this is who you are, and you
mhm,
better get this one right. Is why we do so much time on the creative, right?
for
Because it's
sure.
out there, and everyone's going to understand that. So a lot of organizations find this useful because in the old days it was, you got to come to our facility to see what we do,
Mhm,
and sure, you can run through with an iPhone and say, hey, this is our facility. It's a facility tour. Well, not exactly. This is a lot better way to showcase your people, again, your ethos, what you do, what you're all about, and allow them to
Mhm.
see your operation and really
Yeah.
understand it too. So
Yeah, and I think it's I don't know what like the right word is, but it elevates, I think, the space, and it elevates the look of it. It feels cinematic. It makes something that might seem, and I don't just mean this about manufacturing or shop floors, but just anything that can seem kind of mundane or everyday. It casts this like really beautiful light on it, and
mhm.
like all that is there, and the people there and the hard work that they do. And I think, I don't know, it's really cool. So definitely watch it if you're listening. I really recommend you watch this video. Um, I feel like there was something else I was going to say, but now I am forgetting. Oh, the other thing I was going to say about that particular video and a use case I could totally see, because we've been talking a lot about recruitment at
Mhm.
Top Floor. Just this would make a great case, not just for clients to see who you are and your values, but potential employees as well to see the faces behind your brand, what makes them proud to be there, what, the daily life looks like. I think that could be a really effective way to show that. And that's something that we talk to our clients a lot about, is just, you can run all the recruitment ads in the world, but if you get back to your website and there's nothing that really demonstrates your culture and who you are, it's a harder sell. So I think that could be a really good use case for this too. And I'm
Yeah, and a
guessing
lot,
you've probably seen some of that.
right, and a lot of the times, we went through the timeline. We have that 1 or 2 production days. Um, that's why it's really important when we talk about packaging video together to talk about what else could we get from this shoot,
Yeah. So
because
should
we're
we
going to
pull
go
up?
through all. Yeah, go ahead, Ann. That would be great. We're going to go through all the trouble to plan this big event. We don't want you to only get one video deliverable out of it. That is, it's not a good use of resources, right? I
Right.
mean, a lot of the times we'll have that main video, which you'll watch or you've seen a little bit of. And then we'll ask a different series of questions. It's just another page a lot of the times in that creative document that will be about recruitment, or specifically, a lot of the times, a lot of companies will call it a culture video. This is our culture, and that'll be used to recruit employees. So that's filmed the exact same way. It's just another series of questions during that interview that's going to lead to a whole separate video deliverable.
Right.
And by the way, if you can sit a client down in that chair, we've already set up all the lights and everything. Now you have a client testimonial. So now we're
Yeah.
really talking about how do we maximize this effort. But
Yep.
what you're sharing on screen is really how we've defined the types of videos we do, and it's all based on a la carte individual video deliverables by category, if you want to call it that. A product video, a service video, and again, that can have a features and benefits, a how-to, instructional. It can have a testimonial, all within it. The organization profile is the about us type videos that can have recruitment, that can have our facilities, those types of things. So yeah, all these categories are how we really promote the videos, how we structure them. And you can see we like to be fairly transparent with how we price these types of projects too, because the last thing we want is for you to get very excited about this type of project and be surprised when we put a proposal together. We'd like to
Mhm.
keep it pretty reasonable. I mean, we're not talking about commercial sets here with the director and a bunch of actors and 20 people on set. We're talking about 3 to 4 people, but it still can get sometimes pricey, especially if
Mhm.
the organization's not used to doing video. So we
Mhm.
make it a little more palatable with saying, well, if this one video a la carte is going to cost $10,000, but you can use the same interviews with different sets of questions and
Right.
suddenly get a recruitment video and a client testimonial, and you add maybe $2,000 a video from there. Now we're talking. Now we're talking about
Mhm.
something that's a lot more bang for your buck. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminds me of something I talk a lot about with our clients, is like juicing your content, is how I call it, where
mhm,
it's like, you have this one thing, maybe it's like an ebook, or maybe it's a really like lengthy blog or a blog series, like piece out some of that and focus on specific areas of it. If you have a great client testimonial in these videos, like pull that out specifically and, have a page for that client testimonial where you've got this great footage, or, piece out some things that you can highlight on social media or put other
Yes.
places. It's like juice it, and like get the most out of it as you can. And then what you were saying before too is like, if you do even have a little bit of editing ability and you have all this footage at your disposal, like you could, test your own abilities and
Yeah.
craft some things on your own too.
Absolutely. And look, we love for organizations to come back to us, but they don't have to, right?
Mhm.
And something else we'll give folks too from the video shoot is when you think about how long that, even that JB Industries video, 5 minutes is fairly long, especially nowadays
Mhm.
with, attention spans dwindling. But that one's really compelling and captivating. I think we were fine leaving it that long. Um, from that interview shoot and B-roll shoot, we probably had 3 to 4 hours of footage,
Mhm.
and we ended up with a 5 minute
Yeah.
minute video and some other video deliverables. So there are a lot more possibilities in there. And that's something we always like to stress is we'll give everyone transcripts of all the interviews. They can read the sound bites, they can watch along. Then we give them something called the footage dailies, which just is a
Mhm.
term from the film world, meaning here is everything we shot during the day, good or bad, strung out in a link. Watch it. And there's going to
Yeah.
be some shots where someone did their action wrong. They pressed the wrong button, or our camera lens was slightly out of focus. I mean, everything's in there.
Right.
But from that, we're choosing the best stuff for a particular video. But there's a lot of stuff that's left on what they call the cutting room floor. It didn't end up anywhere. Let's
Right.
use it. Let's use it
Right.
somewhere. I mean, our goal is not to do one video, it's to do as many as we can from that same production shoot for you.
Yeah. So then someone could come back and say, can we use any of this footage for, I don't know, maybe there's product or services, or maybe the testimonial, or can we craft like a recruitment video out of this? Like there's so many potential options. And then you could kind of cut down on some of those production stages because you don't really need to do the production part.
Absolutely.
You've got the
Absolutely.
footage already, and then you're really just looking at that post-production part of that
Yeah.
timeline, because you've got it
It's a
all
bigger initial
available.
investment up front to plan a big shoot like that, but it doesn't, if we do it right and we work together on it, it doesn't have to be like, oh, the guys are here again to
Right.
capture a couple things. That's ideally we get it all done in this one or two sessions of shooting. And you have a lot of content for years. Now,
Yeah.
an organization profile about us video, we'd like to be as evergreen as possible, right? We'd like to, hopefully you only have to do that once every 10 years.
Right.
Now, you come up with new products every year, those will probably need new videos. If you come out with new services, those will need new videos. And we always recommend new customer testimonials, which can live in either products or services, depending on what you do, or maybe both. The other things we do, and at the bottom of the page are,
Yeah.
educational or thought leadership. It's a lot of the talking head stuff,
Mhm.
wanting to be an industry leader, and then events. If you have events, you do. We do videos in those spaces, but again, what we primarily focus on is going to be products, services, and more the organization profile, about us, culture, recruitment, those types of things. So.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. And just so everyone who is looking at this page, this is on the Digital Alliance website. So
Well,
I
this one
encourage,
technically is
right?
a private
Oh, it's
link.
private? Never mind. If I share this
That's
if I
okay.
share this link, I think if I share this link in the notes, if you're comfortable with me doing that, I'm
For your
pretty sure.
audience, yeah, absolutely. We
Yeah.
we like to at least have an opportunity to explain who we are, what we do, our value proposition, and everything before we just hand over the pricing. So it's not,
Yeah. Oh, I get
spilling
that.
your candy in the lobby kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
But once you've gotten to know us, you see the quality of work. These are the types of ranges that our projects start at. So you can't necessarily use this and say, I know exactly how much it'll be to the dollar, but within a
Right.
couple $1,000 range, it'll be pretty accurate for a type of
Yeah.
video. Again, the custom packaging things together, it would be hard to do from this because, again, you can't say, okay, it's 15 plus 10, 25 to do a about us video and a testimonial. No, it'll probably be more like 15 to 17 because we're packaging everything together. So we don't mean it to be misleading. We only mean it to be a starting point. If you're interested in
Mhm.
what a particular video costs, here you go, essentially.
Yep.
So.
That makes total sense. Great. I think, and I'm being conscious of your time here. Um, that seems to cover a lot of the types of video projects, I
Mhm.
think, pretty well. And if you're curious, you can still go to your website, and there are video examples there too, of
Yeah,
projects you've done. So yeah, yeah.
absolutely. Our whole work portfolio is basically a catalog, and it's categorized by,
Mhm.
products and service videos and everything. So it's fairly easy to navigate and filter down to what you were wanting. And again, that's our web design background. We were able to do that with a developer, and get that into working order. So there's thousands of videos on there now, and it just keeps growing. So
Yeah, absolutely. I want to touch briefly on just how you've seen the videos being used by your clients. Typically, I know you mentioned website. Is that kind of the biggest use case you've seen? Is how it's
yeah,
getting distributed?
definitely website, YouTube, social media for sure. Now, when we talk about product and service videos, especially, salespeople will do a variety of things with those.
Sure.
If it's e-commerce, it's Amazon, Lowe's.com, whatever it is. We've done videos for those platforms. But a lot of email campaigns,
Yep.
they've replaced a lot of the times the traditional sell sheet in a
Hmm.
way. And it's just really good for those folks, those reps in the field to sell the products because let's just be honest, everyone's attention spans are not what they used to be. And being
Right.
able to see a 2-minute video about exactly the features and benefits of the product instead of reading it on a piece of paper, especially the
Hmm.
younger generations taking over, it's more appealing to them for
Yep.
sure. And the
It's
same thing
yeah.
applies with services. Same thing applies with customer testimonials. Written is great. Get it on video if you can. Right.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That's definitely something we are also working on at Top Floor is like how can we create more video content? And I think as a sales tool, it's really, really cool. I've seen even like in my own when someone's selling to me, I've opened up emails where it's that sales rep, but they've recorded a video of themselves
Mhm.
instead of like typing out an email. And I'm like, that's so cool. Like it feels more personal, more connected. And I think for the manufacturing space, if you're looking at like products or pieces of equipment specifically, I feel like video really lends itself to product and equipment. Yes, there are brochures and sell sheets, but you can really get more of, I don't know, like a 3D or just kind of like a use case of it in real
Mhm.
time, not real time, but you know what I'm saying? Like a
Yes.
live, like this is how this is being used. So I think it's a great idea for manufacturers selling
Yeah, and I
video.
would say too that some folks we've talked to are cautious of filming in the plant because there's so much proprietary information, and
Sure.
just know that we've done that over and over. Where as long as we have a guide to take us around and show us exactly what we're filming, we can often show you on a monitor how it looks. And to be clear, this isn't live TV, right?
Mhm.
Nothing's going to be if basically if we capture it and it shouldn't be used, we can erase it. It doesn't have to
Right.
make its way into an edit too. So a lot of folks are really cautious of, well, if you bring a camera into the plant, all our trade secrets are exposed, and that's just not the case. We can film
Right.
around it and show certain things, show people at work, but not very specific aspects of a particular machine, right? If that makes
Right.
sense. So
Yeah, but that's a really good point because I know that has come up with our clients as well about, I don't know, even things like case studies, like how much can
yeah.
they share, like, so yeah, it's a balancing act, but it doesn't mean it's not doable for sure.
Yes, you're in
Mhm.
control of the content that ultimately gets,
Yep.
released, right? So if we have the wrong clip in there, let's just X that out.
Yeah.
We've done that
I mean,
over and over. So
you have to show something, otherwise, how are you going to sell anything? You
yes,
know,
yes.
like you got to give them something. Um. Okay, so I want to just kind of end on a couple notes. Well, the first one is just Digital Alliance 2025. Do you have any I don't know, big initiatives or projects or kind of like what's new? What's coming up for you guys this year?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And again, I mentioned that we are entering in May our 10th year business, which we're really excited about. It's been a
Congratulations.
long, thank
Yeah.
you, a very long, twisting, winding road that, again, started in a place we never thought it would start in the
Yeah.
manufacturing space. And I think that while
Never
we
yeah, never a linear path, is it?
No, no, and again, you had COVID in there, and again, just learning to run a business for a few years
Mhm.
is a whole journey of its own. But while we've gone out from just the manufacturing industrial space, I mentioned 35 industries. We've really come back to a head and said, this is where we want to stay. We have been called by our clients sometimes the dirty jobs of
I
video
love it.
production, like the Mike Rowe show. And our new tagline is we build videos that work. And
Love
that's
it.
double meaning, obviously. It works for you, but also it's work. It's hardworking people. So,
Mhm.
I think that over the past few years, especially during the pandemic, the general public now is finally starting to appreciate and understand more about why manufacturing, the trades are essential. And quite honestly, these businesses have such a rich history. It's great for storytelling. It
Mhm.
is. We've worked with some organizations that are over 100 years old. I mean, that is
Yeah.
just a home run for us. It makes our job easy to tell those types of stories. So you just don't see those types of legacies in the tech startups, right?
Right.
It's just not there. It just isn't.
Right.
So I think just leaning into more of what we're doing in this type of industry is exciting for us because we love telling these stories and supporting these organizations. So,
Yeah. I think I totally resonate with a lot of what you're saying. I think in some ways the top floor journey, at least when Chad and Justin kind of took ownership, it's very reflective of some of the things that you guys also went through, especially how things shifted after COVID. I think
mhm,
a lot more manufacturers and, well, really B2B in general, embracing digital and video. They're understanding the importance of having a good website because you're not seeing people face to face as often as you used
right.
to, and
Mhm,
that demographic is changing. And I think, it's really fun working with manufacturers because of
mhm,
that history that you get, and these, family-owned businesses that have been passed down from generation to generation,
mhm.
and also just seeing how stuff is made that, like, you don't even necessarily think about day to day. You're like, "Oh, like, there's someone who makes that." And
Yes. Mhm.
it's a really I feel like it's very rewarding to work with manufacturers and learn so much about them. So, yeah, totally resonate with all that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I can't thank you enough for giving me the opportunity to talk about our company Beyond the podcast too, and it's a
Oh, yes.
pleasure. And yeah, as we keep working our way up into Wisconsin, looking forward to seeing some of you guys as well. So
Yes, absolutely. Anytime you're in Wisconsin, let us know. I have some clients too in the kind of Chicagoland area
okay,
too,
great.
so we can always hit you up. But yeah, thank you so much for being here. I will post links in the description of
Okay,
we talked about a lot, so we showed a lot of visual examples. I'll post all of those if anyone wants to see them, which I would encourage them to do. Yeah, I think that's everything I have. So thank you so much, Dylan, and I know we'll talk soon.
yes, thank you, Ann. Appreciate it. Take
Thanks.
care.
Bye.